Hi everybody, my name is Cassandra Dinkelman. I'm the Education Support Officer at Down Syndrome Queensland. On the screen now there's my office phone number, or the office phone number for Down Syndrome Queensland, which is 3356 6655, and my email address for work is edsupport@downsyndromeqld.org.au. Let's start with congratulations. Yay! We've made it this far. You've managed to achieve many things that you probably never imagined having to navigate, but we're almost there. Whew. Okay, so what I just wanted to let you know is that while I've been researching for this topic, some of the literature that I've cited refers to this stage as re-entry in crisis. But to me, that sounds quite frightening and maybe even unachievable. So instead, let's look at this as a transition, something we're all familiar with and have done many times before. This is your opportunity to get back to what you know and love. Yay! Today, we're talking about transitions, and specifically the return to school for students with Down syndrome after COVID-19. Many of the topics that we're going to cover today have been and will be covered in our usual transitions webinar, which is towards the end of the year. But this one is explicitly about our current situation. So we'll start with a definition from the Oxford Dictionary for transition: the process or period of changing from one state or condition to another. So transition from something or transition to something. So for example, the transition from high school to full-time work. To change, move, adapt, and adjust. We need to make sure that we're working on making this transition from home to school as smooth as possible. For some, the return is welcomed and will be a positive experience as they are reunited with friends, peers, familiar routine. But for others, sadly, after such a period of individual attention in the home, this transition will be tough. Students may feel anxious, uncertain, have a lack of understanding, or feel sensory overload. And they may display these things in a number of ways: non-compliance, tantrums, meltdowns, violent outbursts, escapism such as running, distracting others, or even a range of avoidance tactics. And this is why we need to consider prior planning and preparation to alleviate as much of these concerns as we possibly can. All transitions, whether to school or within school, need to be considered carefully to ensure that all students understand the expectations, the process, and the purpose, not just those with Down syndrome. In a school setting, you would ordinarily be considering all the transitions, so things such as moving around the school, going to specialist classes, from the playground to the classroom, going to the library, going to the toilet, eating area to playground, carpet to desk, or changing teachers. And whilst these are all still important transitions to consider, this webinar is more specifically considering the transition from learning at home to returning to school, particularly because we have had, in many cases, such a long time away, and for some people it's been longer than the summer holidays, so we must consider that. We give a lot of consideration for that transition from the end of school year or the end of something to the beginning of something else, and we need that same consideration for this transition when we're returning to the school environment. What will we cover? So we'll go through the order of priority. We'll recap the things that we've already done in the past, what we might see from students, working collaboratively, so expecting or working towards parents and teachers working together, what we need the parents to do, what the government's advice is for those parents, first impressions for students when they return, what do you do when you get to the classroom, making it overlap, so making sure that the time that they've had at home has been meaningful and for a reason apart from health, of course. And then I'll offer you a transition toolbox and useful resources and any questions. The order of priority, when I was looking at information, they all talked about this same order of priority. One, to make sure that the socio-emotional aspects are considered. Give the students time to discuss and share what they've been through. It's been quite different, you know, and every single student will have had a different experience. Set up and prioritize continuity. Make sure that everything is familiar. So, for example, if there's a new teacher, make sure that there's a familiar teacher with them or a familiar support person with them. Sularkey, who is an expert on children with autism, says that having a new teacher is like moving to a foreign country. So consider those things and make sure it's as familiar as possible. And keep in contact with non-returning students, because as much as we will try, there may be some students who are unable to return to school when the rest of us do. And then number 2, moving on to academic and curricula, the reintroduction of working within a school setting. As much as families have done the best job that they possibly can do in ensuring that everybody is doing their learning at home, it does not look like a classroom. There's no peer support, there's no interaction with their peers. Those sorts of things that we rely heavily on socially are not in a classroom. So we need to ensure that we get those children back into that space and used to working within the way that the school works. And then we can move on to evaluation and recovery. So assessing where everyone is up to and moving on from there. I understand that there is a great push for making sure that we get through those processes quickly so that we can work on assessment. However, each one of those things will take an amount of time to work through and they can't be rushed. You can't work on academic and curricular aspects if the socio-emotional aspects are not considered. So let's recap then. In preparation for the new school year, you provided a consistent and intentional approach. You expected competency from all of your students, basically. Scaffolded expectations, beginning with regular assistance, but removing it slowly so as not to cause reliance or encourage reliance. Time for error and reteaching, not expecting perfection, instead expecting improvement over time. You offered visual supports because 65% of the population are visual learners, which includes children with Down syndrome. So you would have used photos, pictures, visual cues, reminders such as schedules. All of those things are available at Down Syndrome Queensland, and at the end I will share that resource with you so that you can get there easily. You will have gotten to know the child medically, behaviourally, academically, and that would have been through using things such as vision statements or student profiles. Again, those things are available at Down Syndrome Queensland on our website, and I will show you that at the end. And you've used social stories or photo books of the areas that the child or student will need to know or stay away from. And I've got a great resource for you at the end from Sularkey about how to make good social stories. And you encouraged independence. So at the beginning, there may be, they may require prompting, the student may require prompting, but working towards becoming as independent as possible. And this all stems from someone or other people who believe in their capabilities, which helps them to build their self-esteem and their belief that they can have control of their life. At this point, I want to say to you that none of these things are going to go away. You are likely going to need to revisit each of these steps again. You can't expect that because you've taught them once, they will still know them. They will need revisiting. For some, what worked before may not work the second time or this time. So make sure you have backup ideas as well. What might we see then? From the child or in the student, because of separation, we might see things such as resistance or challenging behaviours. They're working with a lot of things and they're trying to cope. So the changes in behaviour that we might see would include sleep, mood, interactions with others, eating habits. We need to recognise the signs for anxiety and stress and worry. And some of those things might present themselves as running away, toileting issues, inappropriate forms of communication. But remember that these things are all typical reactions for when we're feeling threatened. Be aware of your own behaviour in this time too. Remember that calm, positive confidence will encourage students and children to feel calm, positive, and confident. So how will we overcome those things that we might see? Well, firstly, we need to make sure that the children feel safe and supported. We need to give them warning. So using timers and countdowns, maybe 5 minutes or 3 minutes too, whatever it is that you need to work on, and build up from there. Increase interactions, whether it be with their peers, their teachers, support workers, whoever it is, increase those interactions. Offer predictability and consistency. So making sure that you've got the same daily routine, that there's a classroom schedule, both pictorial and word, and highlight changes in the routine. So for example, if there's going to be a substitute teacher, if there's going to be a fire drill, those sorts of things. Offer communication that is multimodal. So for example, verbal, visual, signing, or technology, and use visuals such as social stories or social scripts, they're sometimes called, with less words, more pictures, sharing those expectations of appropriate behaviour, such as things like sitting on the carpet and the schedules that we're expecting them to follow. Because of the anxiety that the students may be feeling, communication may regress or become too hard to focus on with so many other feelings swimming around. So we need to make sure that we're offering as many opportunities to communicate as possible. Utilise peers. So children with Down syndrome are great followers and great mimics, and particularly if there are good bonds formed, peer tutoring can be a very positive experience. So encouraging students to work with their peers if they need help, or maybe if they need guidance with something. Teaching a cue to signal for help. So particularly because we're encouraging independence as much as possible, maybe there's a secret signal that you could have, something like a wave or a thumb waving on the side sort of thing, just so that that student has a way to express to you, I need a bit of help, could you come here, rather than walking over to you every time. Offer positive reinforcements. All students thrive on positive reinforcements, and they can be things such as verbal affirmations, stickers, stamps, but remembering that those that 5-to-1 rule, there are 5 positive things to say against 1 negative thing, and that's for all students anyway. Teach and reteach the skills and activities in a variety of contexts. So we know that application of knowledge is quite a tough thing to learn. So making those lessons explicit, explicitly teaching, walking through, sharing those expectations. This is what it looks like when I ask you to do this job. Oh, so giving them a job in the playground, for example, or where they're somewhere they want to be and they have to move to somewhere that they don't want to be. Maybe you could give them a time to count down. In 5 minutes, I'm going to ask you to do a job. And then in that 5 minutes, you say to them, could you find a friend? I need you to collect everybody's lunchbox for me, or whatever it is that you want them to do that is going to distract them from the fact that they are moving from something they enjoy to something they don't necessarily enjoy. Offering those tasks or our expectations one step at a time, making sure that those things are very clear to the students, and that's where visuals would be very, very useful. And modifying our expectations. So making sure that the level of expectation is suitable for the student. Of course, we're all going to aim to offer high expectations of our students, but we need to make sure that there is an opportunity for success, because success breeds the positive attitude. They know that if they can achieve something, they're more likely to try it and give it a go. Remember that playground is one of the areas that may be an issue. So, for example, it's time to come in. They might not want to come in. Use your other students as models. Use your other students as supports. Ask one of the children, can you call that person in with you when we come to lunchtime? Or can you hold hands with that person when we come and line up? And offer alerts as well, so if they're in spaces that they probably shouldn't be in. And consider the sensory issues in those areas. So we've had this time at home, and whilst some children will have been in family settings that could have been quite noisy, there are many who would have been just one at home on their own. So the playground or many areas could be seen to be too noisy or too vibrant, or the expanse of the area might feel overwhelming. So in those times, we need to make sure that we're providing choices and alternatives. The same vicinity, but doing something slightly different, focusing their area on smaller spaces. So for example, a sensory box. Offering positive reinforcements, having high expectations, being proactive instead of reactive, and having things such as personal timers. So you can get watches, or you could even use a sand timer if you liked. And then once you've done those things, step back. Step back. Allow the students to use those natural supports that you've put in place, the visuals, the peers, the visual cues even, not just visual supports, but visual cues as well, and allow them the time to practice. Okay, so working collaboratively. Excuse me, by this I mean parents and teachers working together. So during this time, parents and teachers need to work together to ensure that school readiness, and in many cases, to ensure school readiness, but in many cases, these things are still going on. So for example, in your past relationships with these families or with these teachers, you've been working on encouraging a list of things that I'm just going to go through quickly here. Dressing and undressing independently, especially with their socks and shoes, communicating their needs, however that looks for the student, toilet training or in the process of, eating from a lunchbox, opening containers, those sorts of things, appropriate social interactions with other students, appropriately greeting others when they see them, separating from their parent or carer, although I do appreciate that in most cases this will have been taken out of our hands because they need to come in from the gate on their own. And recognising possessions. So if they don't recognise their own name as yet, maybe recognising it through a picture. But most importantly, as teachers and parents, we need to have a plan and we need to communicate it. So prior to the return to school, we need to make sure that these sorts of things are discussed. So the good things about school. Tell me the good things about school. Who are your friends? What do you like about your teacher? What equipment do you like to play with? Are there activities that you're looking forward to? Is there something you're excited about? And the students may have things such as art, or going to the library to read, or sitting in a certain area to eat their lunch. They could all be things that they're excited about. Talk about fears. One of those legitimately could well be that they are worried about being left behind at school, because this is something we haven't had to experience for a little while. So encouraging parents to play games like hide and seek and that kind of stuff, where they can be found over and over again, and reminding them that, see, I will always come back to you. So making sure that we're helping children to understand it's okay to feel that way, but there's a solution towards it. So that also leads me on to discussing strategies as well. If I feel like this, what can I do about it? Identify their safe people. So in the past, I've worked in schools where they've had a safe 5, so the children are able to identify 5 people that they feel safe talking to within that environment. And so making sure that the children know there's someone they can talk to, there's a friend they can play with, those sorts of things, to make them feel comforted and validate their feelings. Give them examples of times when they have coped well in the past. Make sure that they understand they've been successful at coping before, and it looked like this. Do you remember that feeling? And going through those sorts of things. And finally, preparing for changes to the school processes. So it will be out of our control that some of the things within school will not look the same or be the same as they were before this event. So the school needs to make sure that they have great communication of all the expectations they have. So, for example, exactly what the drop-off will look like, what the pickup will look like, whether you're intending to contact parents if there's a need to, how that will look, those sorts of things. In this time that we've been away from school, or the children have been away from school, their need for comfort and guidance and relationships has increased. They've often been working one-to-one with somebody, so they're going to have a greater reliance on needing that attention. We need to work out how we're going to get those students weaned off that feeling or that need. And remember too that home learning may have impacted areas such as their motivation, their progress, and their learning. So yes, sadly, some children will have regressed. We just need to work out where they're up to and how we can move on from that. So then what we need parents to do in order to make the return to school smooth, we need to get them to do as much as they possibly can in the build-up to this. I realise that some children are already back at school, but we can still be working on these things as well. So having things such as a practice run, maybe a social story or a drive-by. I like using the 4 things that we're going to do on drop-off. So in my many years of teaching prep, we would say a kiss, a hug, a wave, and go. And that was for parents and children just as much as the other, So understanding that we're not going to kiss 5 times, we're going to have 1 kiss. We're going to have 1 hug, we're going to have 1 wave, and we're going to say, and then we're going to go. So establishing those expectations as much as we can. Encouraging parents to discuss their very dull plans for the day so that the child feels that they're not missing out. You're not missing out, I'm going to be making all the beds. You're not missing out, I'm going to be mopping the floors. Any activity that the child would see as boring or something they don't want to be part of, so that they don't feel like they are missing out by having to go to school, as it were. The night before, so thinking about those things such as laying out their uniform, looking through the visuals of what's going to happen, making and packing their lunch and snacks, packing their bag, encouraging parents to write a little special note. I used to love seeing special notes on bananas. Bananas are a great note keeper. Reading a book about going to school. So on the screen there you can see two of my favourites, my absolute favourite, The Kissing Hand, and the other one, Tom Goes to School. I chose those two in particular because they talk about how to cope. The Kissing Hand is about how to feel like you have mummy there with you, or whoever it is there with you, even when they're not there. And Tom Goes to School is about those butterflies and how, yes, we have those feelings, but isn't it nice when we get to do these other things and we've got things to look forward to? So reading a book of that sort. The morning of, making sure that children eat. So important to make sure that they eat before they come to school. And in that time, talking about the things that they've enjoyed about school, all the fun things, their teachers, their peers, the activities they're looking towards. Maybe talk through the process, use the visuals, photos that you've taken, whatever it is, talk through all of those so that you can start to see a more confident student. Discuss the pickup. At pickup, I'm going to be excited to see you, and I want to know 3 things that you've enjoyed about your day, for example. At home, after school, giving that time, family time, relaxed, having a relaxed evening, discussing the day. What was the best thing about? Was there anything that worried you? Did anything look different today? And discussing those things so that the children know they've got the opportunity to express and process what they've been through in this change yet again. And then additional considerations. So reminding parents that when children are upset and frustrated, it's not to upset the parent. They are simply processing what it is they have been through. They've got a lot to process in this time. Discussing strategies about how we can help the student to keep calm, but avoiding language such as calm down, you're fine, don't be afraid, talk it through, it's okay to have those feelings, making sure they understand what they could do about it. Be patient and make sure that parents understand that a calm parent will help the child to be calm. Expect a meltdown on pickup or very shortly after, because they've built through that anxiety or that separation that they've had. Make them feel heard. Make sure those students know that you are listening to what they are saying. And of course, establishing that back to school routine. So discussing the routines. Today I will see, today I will do, and today I will say. So for example, today I will see my friend Rebecca, and today I will do an art class, and today I will say, hello friend, would you like to play with me? Allow extra time for everything. Think back to the beginning of that year. They needed extra time for everything then, and they're going to need extra time to get through these new or refreshed routines. So more time at bedtime, more time getting ready in the morning. If you've got high school students, then thinking about things such as working from a timetable at home, practice catching the bus again if they need to, organising their possessions and making sure that the teachers are all working together. Do they have a buddy maybe that helps them when they're in school? Here are just the screenshot titles of the Queensland Government's advice to parents I found. I've got the address just down the bottom there, but I've also got it at the end as well. So they talk about paying extra attention to your child's emotions and needs, being aware of your own behaviour, reassuring your child it is safe to go to school, prepare for changes to school processes because there will be some that we have no control over at this point in time, and establishing a back-to-school routine. So all the things we've said, and then available supports. So we at Down Syndrome Queensland would be able to offer many supports, but failing that, the Queensland Government suggests these supports as well. Okay, so just moving down now to first impressions. So you've got all those things set up in the background. They're ready to start coming back to school. I like the idea of making a video. So I'm thinking, visualize this with me. I'm thinking selfie mode with your phone to record something. Hello, everybody. I'm so excited to have you back. Look what I've done with the classroom. Here's our first activity. This is what we're going to do in the afternoon. And don't forget, over here, we've got this exciting activity. You know, showing them things, showing them you as the teacher. They want to see you, that familiarity, and sharing that you are excited enough to have made plans for their return. And maybe things like sending a postcard too. I recently saw a friend's daughter was sent a postcard from her teacher, and it was personal. You know, it wasn't, and that was specific to that family, but not necessarily to every family. And failing that, maybe sending an email, some sort of communication to let the children know that you are excited about them coming back. Okay, and then now let's talk about that drop-off, the drop-off to school. This is going to look slightly different for some students, and it could be quite overwhelming. So we need to consider the zone. What does it look like? The attitudes of the people in that area, the language that they're using positive language, sharing excitement, no lingering for parents. So that 4 that I said before, you know, explaining the kiss, hug, wave, go. You know, it's a nice quick thing to do, and it's easy for everyone to remember. I put them on my fingers and I point them off as we do them. Offering updates or calls or whatever is possible for you if parents or children are feeling anxious, and encouraging parents and staff to feel confident so that the students can see that there is nothing to be concerned about. Make sure you've established who is collecting and where, and at the end of the day, what that looks like as well. So talking through that and making sure that's all very clear. So some examples I've seen, I said about my friend's daughter's postcard, which I absolutely adored. I've done that with classes in the past. I saw another school who had helium balloons at the front of their school in the school colours, which was beautiful. You know, it gave an impression of celebration, enjoying that return. Yay, we're coming back. And I saw it at a school too. I saw where they have senior students in a larger school, senior students who had buddies from the younger classes coming to their buddies, greeting their buddies at the front gate. Of course, with their familiar teachers and that sort of stuff, but the buddies coming and then taking them to their classrooms. I liked those ideas, but as anything you can to make them feel that instant warmth, instant celebration, instant welcome. Welcome back. We've waited for this. We are so excited. Not too excited, of course. Okay, so you've got them through the front gate, and then what? What are you going to do once you've got them in the classroom? Okay, they will obviously set down their bags and put their lunch boxes away, those sorts of things. For the younger classes, you could be considering things such as free or quiet play, where they've got that opportunity to reconnect with their friends. It doesn't need to be long, a quick activity. So in my classrooms, I used to have a quick puzzle in one corner or something, you know, those sorts of things that they could perhaps do with a friend. Maybe singing together, have funny songs or silly songs, take requests, a simple sharing of ideas or things that have gone on while they've been away. So, for example, if you had older students, a fun thing you could do is get everyone to stand up. We're going to do this in 10 minutes or 5 minutes. Let's see if we can find somebody else who watched a movie. Let's see if we can find somebody else who I don't know, went for a walk with their family, you know, those sorts of things. You could do quick fire questions, hands up if you know, and get them to be putting their hands up or whatever, just so that they all feel connected. They've all been through a similar thing. It won't be the same, but it'll be a similar thing. Recapping the routine for the rest of the morning. So once you've settled them in, those nerves have eased a little bit, going back over. Okay, so the rest of the morning is going to look like this. You've already shown me that you can sit on the carpet, that you can play quietly, that you can listen to instructions. And I used to say things to my class like, you've already shown me this is going to be a wonderful day, you know, reminding them of those sorts of things. And then offering opportunities where they can do things like maybe draw or paint pictures of the learning they did at home, the experience they had at home. Maybe you could have a journal time. It could be reading out the journal that they wrote while they were at home, or it could be writing about what they did while they were at home, or telling a friend about what they did while they were at home. Any opportunity where there is to share their experiences again. Making sure that before break time, we discuss those break time expectations and so on. So make sure that you've got short activities and build it up. Give them breaks as much as they need. But how will that look? It's not simply a everyone go outside and run around for 5 minutes. Maybe it's a bit of yoga or a spot of dancing class or something like that. Just something to get them moving and connected again. So work at it like a puzzle. That's how I like to think of it. You show them the picture of what you're expecting, you lay out the pieces, and then you work on it bit by bit. And as with a puzzle and anything else, we tend to get better at things as we work on it. Something I wanted to say here, where possible, the students have had, in many cases, one-to-one time at home, so much that they will be expectant of that time. So where possible, don't rely on the teacher aides to assist during the transitions, or the students will become dependent on them to complete the transition. So instead, focus on peer mentors, focus on using small step-by-step instructions and building that independence. There will, of course, be times when a teacher aide is needed, but we're working on independence for the future. Okay, and then overlapping. Make it overlap. The activities that they've been doing at home may feel disconnected from what they're doing in the classroom. So where you can, try and connect that information that they were learning about or doing at home to the classroom. So for example, here's a little activity. You've been reading lots of books at home. Maybe you talked about the books that you've got at home. Maybe we could follow this Premier's challenge, reading challenge, to see how many books we can get read in a certain time. What types of books are we reading? Those sorts of things. But helping the students to feel that what they did at home is valued and meant something. Making sure that it wasn't just a time filler. I've got that website on the end of the webinar as well. And gosh, we're here already. Okay, so our transition toolbox. So really thinking about it in a couple of simple steps. I normally try and have 5, but I couldn't help myself. So well-being, safety, and health come first. Without that, we cannot help the students to work on everything else. We've got to make sure that they are feeling comfortable and safe. Have a plan and communicate it well. Allow time wherever possible. I understand that we are on a timeline, that there is a push to get assessments done, that there's a push to get back to academics, but where we can, we need to allow the students time to process what has been going on and what the new changes are or new things in the classroom are. Use visual supports wherever you can. And I know I said have a plan and communicate it well, but make sure it's a flexible plan. Have your backups in place. What happens if something changes? What happens if the government says they want things to be done in a certain way now? We need to be flexible so that we can change and work on it like a puzzle. Okay, so Down Syndrome Queensland website, I have given you a few little screenshots just to explain where our resources are. So If you go to Down Syndrome Queensland, which is www.downsyndromeqld.org.au, you will then come to that first screen, which is on the top right-hand side. And at the top where I've circled services, if you click on that, it will allow you to choose education. And in the education section, if you scroll down, it'll look like that picture on the bottom left-hand side. And what I'm trying to direct you to, is the education resource downloads. Okay, and then that will take you to 3 sections for downloads. We have our adapted worksheets, which are at a cost. But then we have our other school documents, which are all free downloads, and our visual supports, which are all free downloads. And don't forget to, at Down Syndrome Queensland, we can help with lots of things. If you're not sure, phone us or send us an email and we will do what we can to support you the best way we can. But we can offer things such as free webinars, free downloadable resources, free periodic educator workshops. Of course, that's when it's allowed again. Phone consultations, emails. We can do school observational visits, which have a cost involved. We can do whole school professional development workshops, which have a cost involved. But they're all at our website, which I said to you earlier, and is there on the screen now. And we've got resources that are available through our website, which include visual supports, student profiles, ICP documents, adapted worksheets, which are at a cost, webinar downloads, and we have a resource database, so all those things that you might need in the classroom for a student with Down syndrome, and a research database which has fantastic information about the latest findings, the latest research. And here's that Sularkey page that I said I would share with you. So Sularkey has a page called Transitioning Tips from Sularkey, and this one in particular is about the social scripts, but there was lots of great information there, so I would suggest that you go there and see what else you can find about transitioning, those considerations for students who need additional or support when they're returning to the classroom. I hope I haven't rushed through that too much. I'm sorry if I have. Okay, and we're here already. Question time. So my email address is there, edsupport@downsyndromeqld.org.au. These resources are the ones that I've shared with you through the rest of the webinar. Again, if you'd like more information on those, I'm happy to send those links to you later on if that helps. We will send out a copy of the link for this webinar to every registrant so that if anyone missed it by accident or for any particular reason, then they can listen to it again in their own time. And it is available on our YouTube. Oh, I forgot to mention that as well. So we have a YouTube channel where we put all of our webinars. We also have videos, so our little educational snippets that we do. I promote or I present a video every Tuesday and post it on our Facebook page. And then we put those onto the YouTube channel afterwards, so you can access those there. And then moving on to our next webinar. So next month, not very long away, we have our Positive Behaviour Supports webinar. So to access that, you can either follow that link there at the bottom of the screen, or you could go to our Down Syndrome Queensland website, and on the first page it shows events, and you can click on it and go through there. And make sure you register for it, because then it sends you the reminder like you should have had for this one. Okay, thank you very much. Feel free to email me if you have any questions, any concerns. or anything that you want to discuss further.